Hello, I'm Doug Muzzio. This is City Talk. He's been the second most powerful official in New York, a reformer from the clubhouse, the conservative guy from Queens. He's an adherent of the prophet Micah, and he's lost some major elections, but he's won the big one, the cosmic jackpot. His wife, Tina Marie. He's Peter Vallone, former Speaker of the New York City Council, and he's written a book, Learning to Govern My Life in New York Politics from Hellgate to City Hall, about his more than quarter of a century in the City Council and the last 15 as its Speaker, serving with 4 mayors, Beam, Koch, Dinkins, and Giuliani. Peter, welcome back. It's always a pleasure.
Always good to be with you, Doug.
I really like this book. It's really several different books. It's part memoir, part political history. It's a love story. It's a family story. And it's got some funny moments. So before we get to what we're here for, to talk politics, let's talk neighborhood, family, faith, and growing up Italian and living Italian. One of the stories, many stories in this book, is a story of you almost drowning. Tell us that story and what it meant to you.
It was one of those turning points in your life. We were vacationing down the Jersey Shore, and it was the last day of summer. It was Labor Day, and I like to ride waves. My sons were young at the time, and my 15-year-old had just passed a lifeguard training course. He was too young to be a lifeguard, but he had just passed the course. And I told my wife, Tina, who I'm crazy about, as you know.
Oh, please. No, it's wonderful.
I said, well, I'm going to just take this last wave in. And I go out, and it was the tail end of Hurricane Edna. So the waves were, 4 or 5 feet high, and it was just perfect for riding. And as I started to go out, my son, Perry, I hear him yelling, Dad, Dad. And he's out further, about 50 feet further than me, trying to hold up a teenage girl who was obviously swept out. Mm-hmm. So I was very confident. I went out there and I said, don't worry, I had been a lifeguard. I said, Perry, go get the other lifeguards. I'll take her in. In the meanwhile, the waves start getting bigger and bigger, and the tail end of the hurricane started to whip the beach. So I had this young person, and I was very confident. She wasn't young. She was about 15 years old, same age as Perry. And all of a sudden, the waves started splashing all over us. And I didn't know it, but I had pulled a ligament in my knee, so I didn't have the kind of thrust I should have had. To make a long story short, we went under. And as I was going under and holding her hands and watching her hair go up, I said, what am I doing here? This is ridiculous. I said, Tina doesn't even know what the insurance policies are. That's crazy stuff.
Right.
Comes into your head.
Right.
Yeah. I got 3 young kids. I said, I shouldn't be here. I almost let her go, and thank God I didn't. Because her eyes, big blue eyes looking into me, so I said, this is it. As soon as I said that, we got up. And I swear, to me, it was a hand of an angel pushing her up.
You are a man of faith, and a man in a sense of public faith, and sometimes in your public position, I believe a conflicted man of faith. One of your favorite religious figures is the prophet Micah.
Oh, yes. Well, that's so great for especially people like us, Doug, who teach government and politics. We both teach in Baruch right now. But, it's fascinating to me. 3,000 years ago, the Jewish people asked the great prophet Micah, and this is book 6 of prophet Micah, what are we supposed to do? How do we govern ourselves? God, would you please find out from God what he wants us to do? And that's a perfectly normal question. So Micah comes back and he says, all that God requires of you is to do the right thing, to love goodness and to walk humbly with your God. Doing the right thing has been the problem all of these years. What is the right thing to do? And that's why I wrote this book, because, we have the greatest system of government in the world. Sure, the people in it we don't like, but what other government? What other government is dedicated to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and not from a person,
You are
from a higher authority?
You're the public official who really does seriously love and get off on both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution.
I don't give a speech without referring
No,
to
I
it.
know.
Yeah.
And Matt Goldstein, the chancellor of the university, by the way, my boss, who wrote a beautiful foreword to the book, calls it a refreshing antidote to the cynicism that so often seems ready to engulf politics in America. And it's there and it's in you that you retain this optimistic view and have. Okay. Family, meals. You talk about sort of the Italian family, because certain books resonate. And when I talk and read your stuff and Mario Cuomo's stuff, there's a real resonance there, the importance of family and eating. And I could probably ask you, what were your holidays like? What was the decibel count? I don't know.
Every Sunday is a holiday in my family.
Go ahead.
One of the, I was pretty busy as the speaker of the council, and it usually meant 4 or 5 meetings a night. But I would always be home and eat at 6 o'clock every night, or thereabouts, depending upon emergencies. And I would have breakfast every morning with my wife, just like I did this morning, and I would always have dinner with my wife. And I would tell my staff, I want you to go home and have dinner, because what good are you to me if you're not going to be good to yourself?
Right.
And that's the hope. If you don't have this family relationship, someone who loves you for what you are, warts and all, you're going to lose it. You can't be very good in what you do. So
politics is particularly destructive of
Right.
families and relationships.
Because there is so much cynicism in it. There is so many people who don't understand that, government is one thing. God is the only perfect person, individual. We all make mistakes, but not everybody is venal about it. And unfortunately, what you see in the media and the press is they'll talk about the one who was indicted, the one who wasn't convicted, the one who went wrong, and they're never talking about all the people that didn't get convicted, didn't do anything wrong, are doing the right thing, but it's not newsworthy.
Right, right. And you are such a gentleman. You have you don't have an unkind word for anyone. And if it is, it's always couched in euphemism, except for one person. And I get the feeling here, had you had this person outside alone, you would have throttled him many a time. Go ahead.
It isn't that. It was the Speaker of the Assembly,
Sheldon Silver,
who he does a great job in his district, but he stops doing that great job in his district when he comes to the city and the state. And that was my problem. What Ed Koch properly called the greatest betrayal in the history of the city, since Benedict Arnold.
Right.
He actually passed a bill for political purposes only, depriving the city of New York of $600 million a year from the commuter use fee. And that was outrageous, and it was strictly for politics.
And you're still mad at him?
I'm still not mad at him. I'm mad at the fact that
you should be mad at him.
No,
No, I'm sorry.
No, I would never.
No, I'm kidding.
He does what he thinks is right, but politically right is not the same as governmentally right.
Okay.
He did the politically right thing to do, but that's the terrible end of government. My whole book is to say, hey, politics is a great vehicle to get you into government, but it should never be the end. The end should be doing good, doing the right thing, what the prophet Micah said. Don't do the politically correct thing to elect one lousy senator from Rockland County, as if that one race in Rockland County cost the city of New York over $4 billion to date. And he, Sheldon Silver, Joe Bruno, Governor Pataki, they have an obligation to give that money back to us. Not only have they not given that money back to us, they haven't given us a penny back.
Excuse me, let me join your tirade for a moment. I live in New Jersey. I paid the commuter tax, and we got a bigger free ride because there are 40% of your commuters come from Connecticut and New Jersey. You would have gotten a freebie, and you blew it. I mean, come on.
They blew it.
Okay, let's move on. The first thing you do before you read the book is you read the blurbs. And you've got Mario Cuomo, Ed Koch, David Dinkins, and Rudolph Giuliani saying all of these really positive things about you, your integrity, your sincerity, your ability to work, your commitment. And these guys, if you put them in the same room, 4 of them wouldn't come out.
Well, Matt Goldstein had a lot to do with the result of the book. Because I teach this as you teach. And
Right.
what I did is I put all my notes together, and it started as a textbook, you know, about government, starting from Micah, the Declaration of Independence, our forefathers, and the great struggle to release the city of New York from the Board of Estimate, get rid of that gang.
I mean, the bulk of the book is about your obsession, correct obsession, I would argue, with eliminating the Board of Estimate.
But so when Matt read this, he said, this is really good stuff. He says, but why don't, since you teach, why don't you tell them how you got there?
Right.
Put more of your personal life. And he found out I had a diary. It's because I mentioned a diary in a book. So he said, you got to get yourself a good editor. So I got myself a good editor. The editor reads the diary, and he likes the diary better than the books. So the next year and a half was incorporating sections of my diary into the textbook. So now it reads more like a novel. But at the same time,
It does. It's a very, as I said at the top, it's an interesting amalgam of things, and particularly for someone who's a quasi-insider like I am. As I told you earlier, in your second election in '77, I was a chief of staff for newly elected city council member at large Tony Olivieri, and I know you hate the at large representatives.
I like Tony.
And one of the things that Tony said, because you were a regular. You were a machine guy, and we were the reformers in Manhattan. And Tony came back from a meeting very early on and came back and said, you know what, that guy Pete Vallone, he's smart and he's got something, he'll make something of himself. And it always struck me, and then you and I didn't meet until really many years later, and I don't think I've ever told you that, but you had a reputation as, even though you were on the other side, and we were really in the minority. I mean, you know, you were cutes guys. Everybody was cutes guys. That you had this reputation. Let's talk about how you take over the new city council in 1990. I mean, you were a major opponent to the Board of Estimate, which previously had run the city. And in 1990, you got what you wished for. You became the speaker of this newly empowered body. What was was it like the candidate? Now what do I do? I mean, what was your reaction? What did you do?
You got to remember, it started in '74 when I was first elected.
Right.
I got elected as a lawyer because you couldn't do anything with the administrative code. I couldn't find anything in the administrative code.
I know,
and
that's one of the funnier elements of
So
this.
it took me 7.5 years to codify that, just to put it in order and get rid of all the unconstitutional stuff.
And you had some great laws that you threw out.
So when I got there, I found out we had no power. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't move a penny of the budget unless the mayor and the Board of Estimate agreed. What kind of a legislature is that? It upsets the whole balance of power, and as I refer to in my book about why it's such a great country, because we no dictatorships. We have balance.
And excuse me, and then the great quote was Henry Stern's quote that it was less than a rubber stamp because at least a rubber stamp left an impression.
Henry and I got elected at the same time.
And I worked in the body, so I mean, I felt the same thing.
So I asked to put a resolution in to get rid of the Board of Estimate. Never saw the light of day.
Oh, well, of course.
I
mean, it was a different era. The leader controlled everything.
Couldn't get it on the calendar.
Right.
So, in any event, it took a long time, and it wasn't until 1989 when the United States Supreme Court finally said, this is ridiculous. New York City doesn't have balanced government. It has to elevate the legislature.
Yeah, I mean, it clearly violated one person.
So I became the first speaker by 1990, and that's when we finally had control of the budget. Well, not control, but we finally had an equal say.
And land use. Powers.
So that was a great change, and it's a wonderful change. And I think most people will agree that from 1989 until 2001, there was a real change in the city, from safe cities, safe streets to everything else. My problem, as you see in the book, is that with term limits done by a well-meaning trillionaire, but with term limits, you have now reduced that balance again, and you have made the legislature subservient to the executive
Wait a minute,
branch.
I have term limits in big bold letters, and instead of 12 point, I have it 14, because I knew that would set you off. Let's work backwards and go back to term limits. So you've got this body, and you've got to, and then what's wonderful also are the backroom machinations here, both, you know, when you first become speaker in '86. So you've got this sort of a worm's eye view of the Big Apple here, but you step out of it and you have larger issues and concerns. Talk to the legacy, the Vallone legacy. I mean, what are the things that you feel as a public official most proud of, if you will?
Well, I think this.
Or the greatest impact. They may be different.
First of all, I think the reform of government, elevating the legislature and making it equal partners, doing it in an open manner. Now anybody can go to City Hall and see things being done openly and privately, and during the day, not at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
The way the Board of Estimate. The way the Board of Estimate.
But the Board of Estimate was fun. On Thursday, you used to go down, have lunch, and be entertained by the shenanigans because you knew it was all set up beforehand.
I think that reform was major. Safe City, Safe Streets was terrific because you don't have a city unless you have a safe city. And 1990, just 2 weeks after I came in office.
Talk about this opening scene in the book and sort of the epiphany for you, if you will.
We just got the power in August. In September, this poor young fellow, Brian Watkins from Utah, who had come in for the U.S. Tennis Open, on a subway with his family, was attacked by a group of hooligans, punks, horrid, and they stabbed him and killed him. And it was over the Labor Day weekend. And I come into City Hall. We had no money. Dinkins was just elected at the same time.
Right.
And
the context is that ultimately there's 2,262 murders. I mean, the city is in a state of fear in many ways.
And a whole family being attacked, on a subway station.
On a subway station.
It was just awful. So we really had a problem there. And then you can't get anywhere unless you have good staff. And I had great staff. People like Joe Strasberg, Richard Weinberg, Peg Breen, Mark Shaw. These are my top people. And they all came in. We started every morning by about 8:15. We were all in. And
you did that every morning. You and Rudy Giuliani really believe in the early morning staff meeting as a way to implement and strategize.
Absolutely, and because you set the whole day, and you know what the priorities are, and you know exactly what you're going to do. Anyway, this meeting said, well, what are we supposed to do? We're broke. We have no money. You can't keep raising taxes. This is crazy. But we're down to 20-some-odd thousand cops. From 30-some-odd thousand, we're down to 20-some-odd thousand. We need at least 5,000 more cops. How are we going to do this? Boom. We just got the power. We are finally an equal power. What we'll do? We'll pass a law, and we will force the mayor to hire 5,000 more cops, and we'll pay for it. We'll show them how we're going to pay for it. How we're going to pay for it.
Right.
Well, first of all, we're going to have to earmark a portion of our taxes. But we never did that before. We can do this. We can get state legislature approval, but we can't do it without the mayor. All right. So now the question was to get the Mayor Dinkins to agree. And this poor guy just came in, and social services were being devastated.
And the economy is a mess.
It's a mess.
It's a mess.
And every year, up until that time we took power, Mayor Koch, everybody promised more cops. But the problem was, 1,000 cops was paid for out of the city budget only. It wasn't paid. We weren't getting any matching money from the feds or the states. So if you don't hire 1,000 cops, you save $100 million. If you wanted to save $100 million, you'd have to lay off 3,000 social service workers or 4,000 of this. So they never did it. So are the public going to believe us? Yes, we will promise it. But nobody's ever kept their promises before. We're going to do it. And that's what we did. We got Dave Dinkins to agree. We called it the Safe City, Safe Streets. With his help, we incorporated children's programs because that was his main concern. I do after-school programs, things of that nature. And 8 years later, over Giuliani's objections, we gave the money back.
Right.
Just the way we said we would.
Right. What this shows is your ability to work with Dinkins on this issue, but you worked well with all the mayors that when you were Speaker, Koch, Dinkins, and Giuliani, and even though you had disagreements,
we sued each other. Yeah.
You sued each other. You always respected one another and friends. But what was the day that you felt like reaching across the table and choking, for example, Rudy Giuliani or Ed Koch? Seriously.
Well, maybe he felt it choking me.
No. Well, that's okay. But I mean, he probably felt that more often than you did. Seriously.
It was going to be like a schoolyard rumble because he wanted that money that we gave back for Safe City, Safe Streets. He wanted to use it to move Yankee Stadium.
Right. Okay. This is it. This is what you want to choke him for, Yankee Stadium.
From the Bronx to Manhattan. And he said, everybody leave the room. It was just going to be me and him. And I said, Rudy, I said, I know. I said, first of all, Bronx County is the most improved county in the nation. It was just starting coming up and all that kind of business. He said, but you could tell them what to do, the council. I said, no, I don't tell them what to do. They're 51 people. They're all kings and queens in their own district. We talk about it. He's not, you got to do it. I said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go over there and I'll tell them. But I'll come. It's going to come up. I come back and I said, nobody wants, not even the Republican. Well, he got furious. We got furious. There were words exchanged and all that kind of stuff. And he walked out. So we had to adopt a budget.
Right.
We took the money he put in the budget for Yankee Stadium and we put it into schools, and we adopted our own budget for the first time ever.
Right.
You know, and nobody thought
that
we
was
could
a
do
big deal.
Nobody ever thought we could do it.
That was a big deal.
But with Mark Shaw and the staff we had a great. We still have a good finance staff.
Absolutely.
We were able to adopt it. We sued each other, and then we became very good friends after.
What
that.
about Ed Koch? You know,
Ed Koch.
You want to choke Ed? When did you want to choke Ed?
Well, that was remember Mike DeMarco when he had made a deal with Mike DeMarco to overturn what we had agreed on doing.
A council member who was the chair of the finance committee. Right.
And
Bronx guy.
The Bronx guy.
A tough guy.
He's a tough guy, nice guy, tough guy. Mayor Koch was going to go in and he was going to take the chair of the finance committee and he was going to usurp the power. It didn't work. Poor Mike lost his chairship of finance, and we went about doing what we were supposed to do in the city. But Ed was he's one of my great friends, and he'll go down as, if not the greatest, one of the greatest mayors we ever had because of his personality. You know, laughing, good humor has a lot to do with sanity. You know, if you're going to just be going around like some people that we might mention up in Albany, you know, angry all the time and like this, I mean, what are you ever going to accomplish?
Right.
You know, loosen up a little bit, you know, and that was what
and you call him, you characterize each of the three mayors with an attribute. The Koch says the spirit, Dinkins is the heart, and Giuliani is the brain.
Right. I think they all contribute.
So the spirit. I mean, the thing that I remember most about Koch is how am I doing, and the Brooklyn Bridge during the transit strike. I mean, come on.
I can't tell you how many meetings I attended with him. One was a very angry meeting in Astoria because the sewers went bananas, and it was we have an ancient sewer system in the city, so we had to spend hundreds of millions of dollars, literally, to try and restore our infrastructure. So Ed comes to the meeting, and people are angry. I must have been 500-600 people at this meeting. He goes, look, all right. He says, some of you are angry. He says, I know you all know baseball. Now, you know, Ed Koch doesn't know the difference between a baseball, a golf ball, a football. He knew nothing about sport. No. But this he knew. He said, you all know baseball. He said, based upon what's happening here tonight, I think it's safe to say you agree with me 7 out of 10 things. 3 you don't. He says, in baseball, that would be a pretty good batting average.
Absolutely, 700. Are you kidding me? That's better
and
than
the place was so angry. They broke up.
That's good, but that's good.
Yeah.
You and Rudy. The thing I remember most, in a sense, about you and Rudy was during 9/11. You were there with Rudy. I don't know whether, as a representative of government, it was sort of seemed that Rudy was, in a sense, almost saying that this guy, could succeed me type thing. And you had a fairly close relationship with Rudy.
We became very close.
But you had some, true battles. I guess the biggest fights were with Rudy more than with Dinkins and with
Well, I don't know about that. No, I think we had probably just as many disagreements.
Oh, good. Well, that's good.
In every administration, because mayors, like presidents and governors, like to have their own way. And they really don't want to deal with a whole legislature. They just want to get a speaker.
Well, the current mayor seems to do the same thing, and we're going to get to the current mayor in terms of his attitude. And you talk about Dinkins as the heart. What do you see in Dave Dinkins?
He was very compassionate. First of all, absolute gentleman.
I know. I worked in his '89 campaign.
Second of all, he really cares about kids. I mean, the first thing he's going to ask you if you come in, do you have any pictures of your children?
Right, and he shows the grandchildren all the time.
He went into his office. Yeah. He had everybody's children and grandchildren.
Yes, when he was borough president.
Right. So he wanted to call, for instance, Safe City, Safe Streets. He wanted to make that cops and kids. He wanted to call it cops, which is fine by me.
Right.
Cops and kids, but the state legislature, which had to give us the authority to tax ourselves.
Oh yeah, I understand.
Thank you very much. But the caption of the bill was Safe City, Safe Streets. So instead of calling cops and kids, it became known as. But he incorporated into that prevention. We just want to arrest all the criminals. We want to stop them from becoming criminals, which is a very important thing. So we put all after-school programs, drug prevention programs in schools. The kind of things that are very, very necessary. That's why it was such a great marriage between David and myself, council and the mayor. in doing not just talking about cops, but talking about preventing crime, especially with children.
Okay, let's move to the current day. We've got about 3 minutes. The current council, how does it stack up institutionally? I know term limits has had an impact. Just talk a little bit about that, and then I want to move to the current mayoral race.
Yeah, the council has done a great job in the 4 years under the worst circumstances because of term limits. There is no longer any long-term planning. There's no longer any future for a council member. So as soon as your speaker is elected and finance chair is elected, no one else has any, they can't get it anymore. It's gone. And they're going to be leaving. They're lame ducks, literally, from almost the time that they're elected. What a stupid thing to do for a legislature. No seniority. I mean, I have to say this. If you were elected, or any of your listeners were elected as a council member right now, they don't know where the bathroom is, they don't have a staff, they don't have anything, and they have to wait until a speaker is elected to hire staff. A mayor, on the other hand, has thousands of people working for him or her from the moment that they're elected. There's no balance, and the only balance you can have is through seniority. So it's going to get weaker and weaker unless we get rid of term limits. You're going to have a dictator as a mayor.
But it ain't happening.
Well, I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen not now, not next year, but within the near
By
future.
what? But not by voter referendum.
No, there's two ways now.
Yeah, I know legislative, but then the voters get crazy. Okay.
Yeah, but there's ways of doing this.
We're going to talk about this later. Mike Bloomberg,
Yes.
you and Peter Jr. endorsed him, loyal Democrats, others have done it. Why, and what does it say about the decline of the party?
Well, I didn't do it as I made
You
it.
did it as a private
Yeah,
individual.
I did not do it as a Democrat. I endorsed Gifford Miller for mayor because he works in City Hall. He had the experience. He could have done a good job. The only other person working in City Hall is Mike Bloomberg, and he's done a good job. I've gotten to be very friendly with Mike. I've went to Rome with him, as you know, for the Pope's funeral, and I've had lunch with him. He listens to me. Not that he does what I tell him to do, but I'm kind of an unofficial advisor. So I think for the city, it would be crazy to turn him out now, even though Freddie Ferrer is a fine official. He was a great borough president, and I endorsed him 4 years ago when Mike had no experience and Freddie had some experience. All right. So this wasn't a rap on Freddie. It was a thing to say, look, this is no time now to change our horse while we're riding it through a stream here. So let's stay with him.
Okay. Very nice. It's a pleasure. As always, you will be back. Thank you.
Thank you.